What is going on, everybody? This is not a preview for tomorrow night. This is actually Home Forward
Wait a
Podcast.
second. What?
Yup. Um, we had a really big show planned, and unfortunately, some of our guests couldn't make it, so we're kind of winging it tonight.
Hey, you know what?
But it's
Just like St. Louis, a few of our guests just didn't show up.
yeah, but unlike St. Louis, we take pride
They
in
had a
what
good
we
reason
do.
too.
So
So
yeah, we are here to support the league and everything that's going on with it. And so just like always, we'll make up for the slack of St. Louis. It is
absolutely,
what it is.
absolutely. Hey, you know
So,
what? To a hell of a 2025 season. So here we go.
cheers.
Cheers. All right.
Ah, l'chaim. Okay, so obviously, um, I think it's fair that we call ourselves out, right? Our picks were completely blown this weekend. I know yours was a little less of an impact because yours was decided by a coin flip. Uh, Yeah, I know. DJ pretty much was the only
Yep.
one who had picked DC to pull off the upset, even though they were favored to win.
I thought going in, Michigan was the favorite.
Were they?
I think
Because
I
I
think they
know
were. I think they were favored by like just a couple points. It was a close bet, but
I
yeah.
I
I
know as of last week it was Michigan -3. So and yes, David, 100%. You know, your Timu Tamu, your hero, your buddy is still undefeated in Audi West. Um, but John, I'll give John credit. I mean, you know, he's kind of been saying it all week also that traditionally speaking, Tamu doesn't lose when he goes to St. Louis,
yeah.
whether he's playing for St. Louis or he's playing against St. Louis. So maybe there's something to be said there, right?
I will say now, like I said, I was 50-50 on my pick. Now, if I had known that Perkins was going to be named MVP and not Teamu, I might probably would have picked DC just for the chip on his shoulder. I mean, I thought, I think we said it on TTF. We're making our picks. I thought Bryce Perkins, had he played the entire season, he would have been the MVP. But having missed the final 3 games due to injury, kind of half and half playing with Etling the first 2 games, even into our game, I didn't think he played enough for the MVP. I thought Teamu should have won it.
Well,
Obviously, Teamu thought he should have won it as well, along with his whole team. He had that chip on his shoulder, and I mean, they came out swinging. I kind of just you know, it was just crazy. I mean, just how much I guess that motivates you or him as a player. So
this right here is crazy. Okay. St. Louis trading all of their picks to get Jordan Tamu back in St. Louis. I would love to see that. You know why? Because they wouldn't have anyone to throw to. So pick away St. Louis. You guys can never seem to find the winning recipe to make things happen. So put the best quarterback you want, you know, you can even go get that guy, what's his name? Bert Favre. Um, put him in at quarterback. You're still never going to get
I think, isn't he still
everything that
doing
you need.
like some mea culpas down in Mississippi or whatever?
I think he's doing time down in Mississippi, honestly.
Who knows?
Yep.
So what'd you think of the game, man?
Um, I'm going to be honest. So I watched the whole game. The first quarter, I was like, oh man, here it comes, right? What is up, my brother?
What's
What
up,
is up?
Cal?
Um, so yeah, first quarter, watched the game, was like, oh man, here it is. DC is just going to get shellacked, right? They were only able to put up 6 points. And if I remember correctly, I think it was a touchdown. Because they went Michigan touchdown, DC
Yeah.
touchdown, Michigan another touchdown, and then I think there was a missed conversion. Um, and then after that, it was like, what the hell just happened? Like literally, I was working on putting cabinets on in the kitchen, TV on in the background, and I hear DC scores, and I'm like, okay, I mean, it tracks, it tracks, and then I hear they score again. What? So then I go back to work, and they score again, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here, man? DC that second quarter alone,
Man, dude, 31 points in a quarter. Like
that's yep.
that's
That
more
was,
that's more than the Brahma scored in a game the entire season. You
I
know,
think that's more than we scored the
it
entire
might
year,
The whole
it
season.
minus
might
the
it,
DC
you know
game.
what, it might be more. You know, it's pretty close there. You know, you could stack probably 3-4 games. Hell, you and not even
I'd
get
say
that many points. I mean, you could stack quite a few of our games together and not even see 31 points.
Yep. It
So,
was just mind blowing to see DC just pour it on like that.
and
And
it
then
wasn't even, you know, like just a methodical drive. It was 2 or 3 plays and a touchdown, just big play, big play, big play. I just went back and looked at the scoring drives and so, or the drive list. DC did not punt, every single drive was a touchdown or a field goal, and other than when they kneeled down at the end of the game,
yep.
they had 10 scoring drives. 10
Yep.
scoring drives, and it was either touchdown or field goal. All of them, you know, their punter just took the day off. You know, he was just kicking it on the sidelines.
literally and figuratively.
Yeah,
Yep. I just completely flabbergasted, as I'm sure the Michigan fans are also, right? Real quick, I do want to give a shout out to all the DC fans that showed up, the DC faithful. Stumbling over my words today. Shout out to the Michigan faithful that showed up. Shout out to the St. Louis faithful
yep.
because there were actually Battlehawk fans there. So I want to thank all the fans that were able to make it and show up and support the league. St. Louis, the rest of you guys, I kind of knew it was going to happen, but I held out hope. I believed in you guys. You talk about how important it is for you guys to be involved and how the league can't really make it without you. You had an opportunity to flex that muscle and you didn't, right? I get it. If your team's not there, who wants to show up, right? But if you guys truly are the financial powerhouse of the league, you're probably going to want to show up even if your team doesn't show up, because without the league, you got no team.
Well, and I think we need to make it's a very important designation or differentiation between they are the best in the league at supporting their team. That's undisputed. No, obviously they at supporting their team, they are the best fan base. They are
Then their
not
team is relevant.
they are not the league's best fan base, because the
No.
league's best fan base supports the league. They go to championship game when it's in their house and they don't have somebody there. That's what the league's best fan base does. And at this point, I'm just, do they even really care about their team, or do they just care at giving a middle finger to the NFL saying, "Oh, look, we should have had a team. Look how we support our team." That's kind of what it seems like to me. Like they just show up just so they can tell the league that, oh yeah, the NFL, that we should have had a team.
Excalibur, I would love to. You, of course, are excluded from this because I know you were there. I know you will show up, whether your team's there or not. Hell, I'm pretty sure you'd come all the way down here to San Antonio if we hosted it, or if it got hosted in Michigan. Okay. The only bone I've got to pick, as I've said a million times, um, My bone is with the people who talk about how this league is nothing without St. Louis. If you guys truly are that important, you probably want to support it then. If everything is relying on your financial contribution, you're probably going to want to support the league, even if your team isn't there. Because again, without the league, there is no St. Louis Battlehawks. Simple fact.
Yeah. And I will say
That's all
to
I'm saying.
XFL Mike G's comment right here, you know that I did see a bunch of other teams. Houston posted they were having a watch party at
Mhm.
one of the ice houses in the city. Stuff like that's really cool. I was happy to see stuff like that.
Yep. It wasn't my dad that said that, Excalibur. It was my mom, but I get what you're saying. And again, as I said before, I prefaced it with this is not for the St. Louis faithful. I have nothing but love for the St. Louis faithful, the ones that show up like you, John, uh, Toby, uh, Mark, all the guys, Ed, Spurgeon, like everybody that shows up, the 40 or 50 people that we know that show up come hell or high water. You guys have my undying eternal respect. It's the rest of the folks, right? Those are the ones that I have the bone to pick with. 2023, guys, tell me if I'm wrong. We were all there for the championship game. San Antonio, we could have gotten in on a backdoor win had Arlington lost to Houston, but we were all there, right? San Antonio was not in the playoffs. We were there. So 24, San Antonio was in the playoffs. We went to St. Louis. In fact, Jorge, you went to St. Louis so long, I think you got like a mailing address there, if I remember correctly.
In East St. Louis, I did, yeah.
Now it does say East St. Louis, but still,
Yeah.
right? It's still St. Louis. But again, right? Spent a lot of time. This is an opportunity. And I've got a feeling that there were probably more Battlehawks fans last year than there were this year.
Oh, definitely.
And
Oh, 100%.
I mean,
I,
there weren't 8,000 people like at the game this year.
no, but I think that's something
Well-
that like league wide as the season waned on, the attendance across the league minus Michigan, they're the exception. It kind of fell off, and you could see that in the stands, and it was something that obviously was really prevalent at the championship game. When you compare it to last year, I think it was kind of like the shiny new toy effect that we also had in 2023 with XFL in San Antonio. Shiny new toy effect, brand new football team, brand new league. It was just fun to be there because it is a new thing. Last year, it was St. Louis's turn. It was their first time to be able to host the championship. This year, it was just kind of like it didn't have the same. I don't know. I don't know the word that I'm looking for, but that same kind of vibe that you got the past 2 years, with both of years being basically a new product.
No.
No.
And I think St. Louis fans, they kind of learned, I guess, a little bit from last year to maybe not buy tickets until they were sure that their team was going to be there. Just because, I mean, obviously the announced attendance last year was 27,000. This year was like 14.
Yeah.
So, and we know most of the that 27 was St. Louis fans that thought their team was a shoe-in to make it. So this year they were like, maybe we'll hold on a little bit, and but
yeah, I mean, again, so a couple of things to think about, right? I know we're saying that it did look like there were more than 8,000 there. You have to remember that the chicken coop does have 3 tiers. If there are people sitting in the second tier, you can see the first maybe 2 or 3 rows. After that, they blend into the shadows. The folks up in the third tier, where there usually is a pretty good amount of people, you will never see those folks.
They
It's
had a
like-
couple shot. They had a couple wide shots where you could see up there, and there were a bunch of empty seats. So
Well, yeah, because those people probably died of lack of oxygen up there. So freaking high up there.
they got mummified from all the dust.
On the same token, though, I mean, we saw a lot of big sports competitions happening this past weekend, and all of them suffered from low attendance, from what I felt. Maybe because it was Father's Day week. I mean, even with it being Father's Day weekend, that's usually what you do for dad, is you want to take him to the sports game,
And
But-
I've been saying for years and years and years that they need to move Father's Day to football season, NFL season, because there's nothing better than for Father's Day than sitting around having a beer and watching football with your kids. Well, now we don't have to move it to season. We've got Father's Day weekend. We got UFL football around here, so.
But
Yeah,
I mean, that's
I
something
mean-
that I've noticed. I mean, maybe it was ticket prices, maybe it was just travel prices for people to get there. Things are more expensive nowadays. So I wouldn't. On one hand, yeah, I'm a little disappointed that the attendance kind of fell off, as did the vibe, as the season went on. But looking across the broad spectrum of all sports, even with the NBA Finals going on, attendance is down everywhere.
It is, and I think obviously a lot of that has to do, kind of with the economy and things just being a little bit tougher, being a lot more expensive. I mean, heck, gas is $3 a gallon again here in San Antonio.
It goes up and down like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so things are just more expensive in general. However, I'm trying to see if I can find it. We're talking about attendance, right? San Antonio has actually held, I mean, we've lost, don't get me wrong. And I'm trying to find the 2025 stats. It's this guy. Block him. No, I'm kidding. Hey, real quick, Jorge, this shows you how bad East St. Louis is. I didn't get to mention this earlier. Even Missouri won't claim East St. Louis. They had to give it to Illinois, right? So that tells you how bad it is there. Anyways, back on track. We lost a couple of spots from 23 to 24, right? Our average attendance was 14.9. Not bad. We were number 2 in the league. In 24, we dropped down to 11.8, right? And that was with, that incredible run that we had. We lost a couple of spots. 25, I'm trying to find our average. But I think we averaged around 11.
We're around 11, yeah.
It was like high 10, low 11, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
So-
I'm like 90% sure it was 11 something.
Yeah. So all things considered, we didn't do too bad overall, especially with the season that we had.
Yeah, I think 11,000 for a 1-9 team is actually pretty good. And I said this last week, and I still St. Louis is always going to be the outlier, and a lot of it is because of the middle finger to the NFL. 10 to 15,000. That's kind of what you're looking for, your wheelhouse for at least for right now with the startup of the league. I think that's good attendance across the board. So, obviously you'd like for more, but as the league grows, then you'll get that. But
And so I kind of like Excalibur's questions here. Like, where do we think the championship game should be next year, and what are our predictions for it? So I know I have my ideas, but I like to hear you guys' first.
I mean, obviously, for selfish reasons, I would love to have it in San Antonio because it's here. I don't have to travel. But I think it's also it's a benefit too, because you've got Houston that's 2.5 hours away, Dallas, Arlington that's 4.5 hours away. It's kind of an easy trip for those fans to come down as well. But Detroit, Michigan, it's a dome. I think the dome places, especially if you're having this thing in the middle of June.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of
Even
got
at the beginning of June, still.
Yeah, you got to look out for the heat and stuff. I mean, Birmingham out the window. Can't do it in Birmingham in the middle of June with
Definitely
the
not
outside
Houston.
stadium. Memphis, same thing. You know, both of them same area. It's going to be 1,000 degrees with the sun on your face. DC, you know, DC. I kind of looked up the weather because I was curious. It's kind of about the same as San Antonio right now. You know, they're having mid 90s, so
Mhm.
you are fighting the heat a little bit. You know, but I just Audi's field is really cool. I think a game there would be fun. Again, it's outdoors, so you don't know what you're going to get with the weather.
So I'm taking a little bit of a different approach, right? While you guys are talking about it, I was looking up some of the former teams where they played, like for example, the New Orleans Breakers, stuff like that. I think what I would like to see would be a neutral site that they have potential eyes on for expansion, because then you get an opportunity to introduce your product to a new market, if you will. Show them what the Alamo or what the UFL is all about. You get to drum up business for that community, which shows that you're trying to support the growth of your league and the growth of the product there in that new marketplace. And for the fans that maybe don't have a team in that neutral site, to be able to experience some of the stuff that like we have, being able to talk to the players the way that we do, being able to talk to the coaches, hearing blind Dino completely miss a penalty call in real time almost, just like the rest of us have seen. I think doing something like that may have its own benefits. So that's kind of what I would like to see.
I think you have to have some sort of skin in the game for if you're going to host the championship. And by that I mean some sort of connection to the league, not potential
Okay.
connection. I think you're gonna have a lot of people if it's at a stadium that doesn't have a team that maybe they want to put one in a couple of years. I think you're gonna have a major attendance problem, because right now they're most people are gonna be like, I don't care. Why do I care about hosting these two teams that a league that our city doesn't even have a team in yet? I think you're going to have a much bigger attendance problem with something without having a connection to that league.
True, but counterpoint. We already have an attendance problem, and we're doing things similar to that right now, except for having, the all the games at the Dome of the Americas because of the issues with Audi Field and FIFA or whatever it was. Had Michigan won and they actually played in Ford Field, I you would have had better attendance for that game. But the championship game back in St. Louis, you're back to the same thing, right? So neutral site, make it easier for people to travel in general too, right? That way it encourages more people outside the league to show up. And the skin in the game is knowing that that product is coming. Look at how involved we got when we found out, like day one, when we found out that we were getting a team, right? You and I immediately joined the St. Louis Battlehawks, several different Facebook pages,
Yeah.
and immediately started talking trash and stirring up trouble. Okay. As soon as we met Jorge, boom, started the momentum for us to get this podcast going, right? That we didn't even have a team. They could have folded up shop, kind of like the IFA did with the San Antonio team, like overnight, and just oops, we don't have a team there now.
They have they're falling apart like crazy.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Um,
And that's just not to say. I
Skin
think
in
the
the
whole
game.
league's doing that, but that's for tomorrow's show. But.
Yeah.
right, skin in the game. There are people like you and I, and Jorge, and Jackie, and DJ, and Excalibur, and all these other guys I can mention. There's people like that in every marketplace. It's just getting that opportunity to reach out to them. to get them connected. So if you know, hey, 2025 or 2026 rolls around, beginning of the season, guess what? We're hosting the game in such and such city. Let's say Canton for the discussion's sake here. And by the way, Canton, you're getting the team. So maybe now you might want to start paying attention to what's going on, right? Now, I'm not saying that the UFL is going to come out and say it exactly that way, but something to that effect to grab their attention from day one and give them something to look forward to. So during the season, they make announcements about the team, what the colors are going to be, what their Timu mascot is going to be, all these different things. So when the championship game rolls around and they've got the game there, maybe there's 1,000 people there, maybe there's 1,500 people there, but it makes a difference. And it starts growing the brand that way. So people locally are going to be like, oh, hey, that UFL thing is on. I'm not going to go to the game, but I'll watch it on TV. Hey, is that my neighbor down the street, John? And what is that shirt? Oh my God, we've got a team, right? There's where the skin in the game comes from. So,
what do you think, Jorge?
My thoughts, but
no, I mean, I think that's a good strategy as far as having it where there's not a team in the market. Is if there's going to be a team in the market. If there's if people, if you go to, let's say, Salt Lake City and there's no plans for expansion to Salt Lake City and just put the game there, no one's going to show up, and people aren't going to travel. But like you said, if there's going to be a team in Canton or in New Orleans, and you're saying we're going to have it in New Orleans, this is your opportunity. That would make
indoors.
Right. Now,
yeah.
With that being said, I think for next year, if the season starts at the end of March, like it did this past 2 years, then as much as it would want you would want to have it at a different place, you have to have it in a dome just for player safety, for fan safety, because doing it outdoors in the middle of June in any market is going to be dangerous. We're already seeing what's happening right now in the FIFA Club World Cup with temperatures where players are playing, where in California, it's 85 degrees as the high, and the sun is beating down on them. People are passing out in the stands. Players are complaining. They're having to take hydration break. It's becoming an issue, and you can see that in other sports. And then, so really, you're only left with the options of Michigan, San Antonio, or another St. Louis. I don't think St. Louis would have it again because that'd be 3 times in a row. And I think they'd want to kind of share the love. Ideally, in a perfect situation, I honestly would want to give it to Arlington. I think it's their turn to host a championship game, given that they are the hub of the league. That's where they're headquartered. And I think it's Arlington's turn. But then you run into the issue of, okay, it's outdoors. And if you haven't been to the stadium there in Arlington, it's
Tuckjaw.
That one. Yes, the third baseline and the first baseline are covered somewhat, but then you have the sidelines and they're getting blasted with the sun. And any time that we've gone there, we have heard complaints from fans, and this is in March and April, saying the sun is just killer.
It's brutal.
It's brutal there in Arlington.
It's a terrible stadium to have football in. I mean,
but it's what
horrible sidelines. The jumbotron it sucks where it's at, and it's it's ridiculous.
And I mean, and at the same time, we heard Jordan Ta'amu say it was for the playoff games, if the number 1 seed wasn't St. Louis or Birmingham, why not have it at the neutral site there?
And that's what I thought they should have done for the championship games. If obviously the Michigan was unavailable, DC was unavailable. To make it fair, they should have neutral site games. And I think Arlington would have been a good choice for that. But
well, and then to Excalibur's point, it's hard to be able to predict because there's rumors of it might start at the beginning of March or right after the Super Bowl, and it might start same start time. So that also kind of plays into the factor of like where it would be, because if it starts the week after the Super Bowl, then yeah, you can absolutely have it in an outdoor stadium. You can have it in Arlington. You can have it in Birmingham, because then you're playing the championship game sometime in May, and it's not super bad.
And you could always make it an evening game too if you absolutely had to.
In May, you absolutely could. In June,
Yeah.
it's middle of June. It's a lot harder to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you're kind of stuck to having to play in a dome for safety
Right.
reasons.
Right. So back to the second part of Excalibur's question, it's going to be hard to predict attendance just simply because there's too many variables right now. We simply don't know if, when and if they're going to expand this league based on this year's numbers. Are they looking at maybe holding off on expansion and trying to reinvigorate the marketplaces where they've already been established? Or do they take a chance on, maybe mixing things up, maybe moving some of the teams that didn't perform so well? Like, there's too many factors. So, with that being the case, we're kind of back to square one. We just simply don't know.
I mean, now if you're gonna pick, let's say, okay, if San Antonio hosts it, let's look at what we did a couple of years ago. Announced was 24, but there were well over 20,000 people in the dome. I think it would be comparable. If it was an Audi, I think Audi would probably do the same. They would probably fill up. Now Memphis, probably not. Birmingham, they've got a championship team, and they didn't care about going to see them for a lot of the games. So I don't think Birmingham would show up, especially once again with the heat. Michigan, I think Michigan would probably show up. I think Michigan would have a good attendance, and then Arlington would be pretty decent. Like I said, it's pretty central. You get a lot from around, and
it's easy to fly to from around the country because Dallas is a direct flight for most places.
So that's it. I mean, yeah, I think it would be. I think most places you would get pretty good attendance, and I say pretty good, close to 20,000.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, when they had it here in San Antonio, we were at 22,750, right? Let's just call it 22,500 for argument's sake. And I'm trying to look at the UFL attendance for
last year was 27.
Okay. So we went up in attendance, right? But then this year was what they
14.
said.
This year was 14. But again,
right.
all those those are all distributed. We know last year there wasn't 27,000 people. There was maybe 12 to 15. This year it wasn't 14. It was maybe 8. So
I'm honestly worried. Like, I don't even care about distributed or any of that crap. I want to know how many tickets were sold, right? Because that's where the money's coming from. I don't care about distributed because we know that there's tickets that are given away for free for, a lot of the different like veterans charities and things like that. I want to know how many tickets were sold and what the box office draw basically was. Because then we can kind of look at Excalibur right here, bashing St. Louis. And I don't even know that. I mean, I think we could have done a heck of a lot more bashing St. Louis. To be honest.
I mean, you don't have to trick us into bashing St. Louis.
Yes.
Oh, see, it was trying to get us to stop bashing St. Louis.
Oh, stop bashing St. Louis. Okay.
Yeah, good luck with that.
The only way you get us to stop bashing is if we have to do this podcast from the dome. We're coughing up dust the whole time.
Yeah. I think St. Louis makes sense as a choice because of the location, although it's not necessarily super centrally located, but it's not that far from Arlington. It's a couple, 5-6 hour drive. It is a major hub. People can fly in and out, not a big deal. I think if that is going to be the target destination, then we have to do a lot of advertising and drumming up business and doing a lot more to bring more people in.
This
Regardless,
pick in St. Louis had nothing to do with being a central location, whatever. I guarantee it had everything to do with them hoping that St. Louis made it to the championship and 40,000 people would be in the dome. They hoped it last year, didn't happen. They hoped it this year, didn't happen. Guarantee you, they're not going to do it a third year in a row. So
okay. But again, well, let me rephrase what I was about to say, so it makes a little bit more sense. As a business plan, the league should not be counting on any one team to try and carry the entire league. It's great that St. Louis has all those fans. It really is. And, hats off to them. They've consistently shown up in the box office numbers where no other team has like that. But the league cannot depend on St. Louis to bear the burden.
Yeah. But remember, they originally wanted to have it in Audi this year. They just, there was, conflicts with the World Cup. So we may see that next year, depending, I don't know. The World Cup's still going on next year, right?
Yes, but DC's not a host city, surprisingly. But even if it was, it wouldn't be played in Audi Field. It would be played where the Redskins play or whatever, the Washington football team, whatever they're called now.
So, I mean, we may see next year, hey, because Audi couldn't host it in 25, them host it in 26, So.
Yeah. Or, like we were talking about before, putting it in a place where they're talking about, potential expansion. If they're thinking about New Orleans, we could play in your second favorite stadium, BD. And I'm not going to mention the name that you called it on TTF. It's the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Oh, you mean that's Atlanta, dude?
Was that Atlanta?
That's Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, Megatron's asshole.
Yeah. That's the part I was trying to avoid. But okay, so right, we're already playing in Ford Field with Michigan. New Orleans is pretty centrally located, right? The Superdome, it's not like they're doing anything with it anyways. I mean, may as well use it, right? I'm sure they can get it pretty cheap.
I don't think the Breakers weren't playing in the...
No, they were playing at a college stadium. I already looked that up. But that's outdoors. And who wants to play spring football?
Who wants to be in New Orleans with that swamp ass in the middle of June?
Oh, and the smell.
Man, I see all filters are off tonight, boys. That's
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. The point is, if we're going to rely on St. Louis to carry the league, then we're going to have to cater to that. I don't think that that's a good business plan because as we saw, and rightfully so, like I give the fans hell about it, but I get it. If you're a casual fan, why are you going to pay money to go watch a team or watch two teams play that you've got no interest in whatsoever? Right? We're bitching at people about being involved in supporting the league and whatever, but they're casual fans. They're not, and this is not like an insult or anything like that, surprisingly. But they're not at the same level of fandom as we are, right? We are diehards. We do crazy crap like this. We spend, thousands of dollars every season to go chase these teams around, whether we're 1-9 or 9-1, right? A lot of these folks aren't going to do that. So to kind of rely on them to foot the bill to support this, that was an unrealistic goal in the first place.
Just want to say, hey, KJ, hey, I saw you on the championship broadcast, man.
Yeah, another crazy fan that spends thousands of dollars chasing teams.
A Houston fan, a Roughneck fan that traveled up for the championship. So,
so,
I think we can all agree though this next off season, especially with the stiff competition sports wise next year, is going to be a lot of marketing and maintaining relevancy during this next offseason. I mean, that's been the biggest complaint from fans. There's not enough local engagement. There's not enough local presence. And I think that's something that they really, really, really need to. I mean, okay, we're going into year 3 of this new merged league. It's not new anymore. You know?
Yeah, and I think we're a little spoiled here. I know, we see our our team out there. That Fiesta, they were at every day of Fiesta, they were out somewhere. We always see them doing stuff. James Carr, he's out doing stuff all the time. You hear from other teams and other fans, and they're doing nothing.
Mhm.
That's the biggest thing. Like you said, Jorge, we see that a lot with people, talking about what the team's doing in their markets and stuff, and it's just it's a whole lot of nothing, and it's definitely something that needs to change for the league.
Yeah, I mean, use the NFL season as a opportunity to maintain relevancy. It's use high school football, use college football, use every avenue you have to be able to maintain relevancy.
Yep.
And ride the wave, especially if they're going to think about moving up the start date, because that's going to play a factor into it as well. Because I guarantee you, as if they were to start at like they have the past years at the end of March, the come May, when things are starting to ramp up for the World Cup, the nation's focus is going to be on that, because that is nothing. Not even the Super Bowl can compete with the World Cup. The UFL would just fall into obscurity. The NBA playoffs are going to fall into obscurity. It sounds wild to say, but trust me, the World Cup.
I think as a worldwide stage, you are correct, Jorge. Like, as a worldwide stage, absolutely.
But here in America,
here in the U.S., I don't think there's as many people that are as passionate about the World Cup as you are. Obviously, there's a lot. I mean, I'm not saying like you're the only one that cares about the World Cup, but
there's like 3 or 4. But
I think it's a market, but I don't think it would dwarf like the Super Bowl. Just American, USA, stuff like that. But
no,
I understand what you're saying, but and just like it's a spring league. We got the NBA finals going on right now. I got it on my screen over here. I'm watching. You've got the PGA events, the Masters. You've got the Daytonas and the NASCAR events. You've got something every weekend, and it's you're just gonna have to deal with it. I mean, it is what it is. None of those events are gonna stop moving and showing. So the UFL, don't use it as an excuse. Work around it.
America. I think I get what you're talking about. It is going to be a huge draw against our fan base, right? But I think in conjunction with everything else that's happening, NBA, like you're talking about, we didn't mention it, but the Stanley Cup, right? Further up north, those people actually care. Even in Dallas, they care, which I don't understand how you have a hockey team in a place that's never seen ice, but whatever. It is what it is. People actually care about some of these things, just like we care about, the UFL playoffs and the championship game and stuff. I think, as you already said, if you bump that schedule up to start right after the Super Bowl, you combat a lot of those problems.
Yes.
So we're wrapping up as they're firing up.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
The only problem with that is you're dealing with right in the meat of the UFL season is you've got the NCAA tournament. So it's never going to be perfect thing. You're always going to have something.
But honestly, I would much rather compete with March Madness than the World Cup, NBA Finals, and Stanley Cup playoffs at the same time.
Yeah. I 1,000% agree.
Yeah, because March Madness, I mean, a lot of people are watching while it's going on, but they could be watching while they're at a game, or they could be getting updates.
Yeah, and you don't get the first couple rounds. It doesn't really get real heavy March Madness until the Elite Eight. So
right. So, and
everybody's kind of on board that we need to start that season as soon as the Super Bowl is finished. Like as the confetti is still falling down from the sky. All right, boys, let's go. We're up next. Come on. I think if we stay on the course that we're on, and there was a great article. I don't know if any of you guys saw it or not. It didn't reveal any of the details, but it was kind of nice to hear that, there's a 3, there's a 5, there's a 10, there's a
15-year plan, whatever for the UFL. Yeah, that was cool.
Right. And so that shows stability in the leadership of the organization. But I've got to believe that with the attendance dropping, that changes that plan a little bit. And hopefully maybe we put the expansion talks on hold for right now and just rededicate those resources to trying to re-solidify the marketplaces that we have, right? Places like Houston, where they maybe need a little bit of an attendance boost, or Memphis, where they could definitely use that.
Yeah.
Hell, even Birmingham, who is, the 3-time whatever, I don't know how you would wrap that up, but they were champion 3 times in a row of 2 different leagues.
I like 3-time spring league champs because it fits, 2 separate leagues, it flows, and it's correct. So, I'll allow them to use that term, but
yeah. So they need to boost their attendance there because they've been completely relevant, and their numbers are dropping. Why? That doesn't happen. That would be like, taking the 90s Spurs and watching them make the dynasty runs that they did and watching attendance drop to
or
like
even
30% of what it had.
The 90s Cowboys. Imagine by the 3rd Super Bowl, they only get like 20,000 fans, and you got Emmitt Smith in his prime.
That would be horrible. So,
yes, I give Birmingham permission to use that. Well, now they can't anymore because they got knocked out. So,
yeah. So now they're just irrelevant like the rest of us.
Yeah.
And I mean, Excalibur kind of has a point. That costume's pretty hot, right? You think about some of the crazy stuff that fans do.
Jorge, that's a thing for you too.
He had built-in ventilation in Memphis.
That was Memphis, So yeah,
he was okay there. Maybe the train whistle guy wasn't so happy with the view, but I mean, at least Jorge was nice and cool and comfortable. But this is not necessarily a bad idea either, right? It's a little bit crazy, it's a little bit gimmicky, but make things a little bit even more affordable than what they already are, right? Use that to draw people in.
Well, the first thing you need is you need to get people into these stadiums, and you need to go out in the community, find your market, go to schools, go to elementary schools and middle schools, and get see the kids who want to go back home and say, hey, mom, dad, I had some football players came here. I want to go see them this week. Let them drag their parents. So just methods of getting out in the community is really what we're talking about.
I think that's the hard part, is that there are no football players to be able to bring out during the year. It's going to be front office staff, the mascot. I mean, they have mascots now they can bring out. So
I'll put on a jersey and pretend.
But that was one of the biggest things I remember when I was more, I guess, involved, I would say, is a lot of businesses and a lot of organizations were saying, are any of the players going to be there? I heard that a lot from the news stations. I remember that was the case when we did like a back to school drive in collaboration with the team in the front office. The first question I got when I asked the local news station was, are there going to be any players there? I'm like, well, no, nobody's under contract.
We'll have some retired players.
We'll have a couple fat guys in a jersey. So
We can pull it off.
Well, that's what when we did it last season when we walked in and you were in the jersey, that kid was like, "Hey, look, there's football players."
I felt so bad for that kid. He looked at us and thought we were football players. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, kid, I hate to break your perception of reality here, but maybe fantasy football players. That's about the best we can do."
Yeah.
Anyways, yes, 100%. It comes down to marketing. We've got to get out in the communities. We've got to connect or reconnect or even reconnect in some cases with the fan base and draw them back. These games of 5,000-6,000, that's not going to cut it, right? And I don't care how
It's
much.
not. Now, obviously, the big thing is the league is a TV league. That's what everyone says. It matters how many people watch it more than attend the games. But you got to get the local buy-in, like you're saying, Jay. We got
the shiny new toy effect has worn off, and that's the thing is people are gonna tune in and they're gonna see a bunch of empty stadiums.
Yep.
They're gonna turn the channel to something different, and that's why the same issue is playing right now. Sorry to make another soccer reference here, but it's relevant to what we're talking about. The Club World Cup. They've had their issues with ticket sales, and so what they did, especially they did this with the opener, where you have Messi playing, and he's one of the most popular athletes in the world. They took where the Miami Dolphins play, the fans that were there. It's a 65,000 capacity stadium. And they moved them all to the hard cam side where you can see, and the stadium looked jam packed, but then when they would accidentally show, like, let's say a player walking in from like halftime, the opposite end, it was empty, and it was really bad optics. And so they're trying to combat that, but you never really see that side of the stadium. Kind of like when you would see a Brahmas game this year, you would see it on TV and it looked just barren in there. But that's because everyone was sitting behind the home team, which isn't the side that the camera's pointing on. And so you would look at the home side and it looked like a pretty decent crowd. But I mean, what you see on TV versus what you experience in the stadium, it's two different things. And people aren't going to get that same vibe but watching from, wherever they're watching from, that's not inside the Alamo.
Right. So a couple of suggestions were made by KJ and by our own 210 Bramasita, right? Start connecting with the local universities. So this is kind of, I don't necessarily want to say a challenge, but an encouragement to the other podcasts that are in their local marketplaces like we are here in San Antonio. Start reaching out, start trying to connect with the universities. Start going to the games, and like us, I mean, you see the banners that we've got right here. Go and tailgate, go watch the game. Perfectly fine. But fly your colors. People are going to start looking at that, and some people from the UTSA crowd are going to, they are going to be connected with both. But there's going to be others that are going to be like, the hell is that Brahmas thing, right? You just start talking to people, start spreading the word that way. University of Houston, go to the games, fly your Roughnecks flags. Arlington, go to what is it, Career Point or whatever you guys have up there, and just connect with those folks. And I'm sure they can take a course off from the hair care or the auto mechanics course that they're taking there, and come and watch a game, right? But
I got tickets to Arlington game. Thanks, Career Point.
Oh, I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it.
And another like kind of easy way to do it is if College Game Day is in your town or near your town, and they have the flags there, take one of your flags and just show up with the students. And kind of like the Washington State flag. Like, Washington State is notorious. They're not that popular or good of a team, but they're notorious. Everyone knows Washington State because of College Game Day. And
I remember last year at a couple of the college game days, you saw some UFL. I think they had like there was an Alabama game or something they were at. You saw like a Stallions thing flying in the back, and you saw a couple people do that. And
Yeah, like,
stuff like
that's easy way to do it. And I don't know that they'll ever have college game day in San Antonio, but hey, they have it in Austin. Why not?
Yeah.
Again, the more noise we make, the more buzz we're going to create with the media, right? So we've got to get out there. We've got to do our own grassroots efforts like we've always done here in San Antonio, and we're encouraging everybody else to do. Go start riling up your fan bases. The league is going to do what they're going to do. We hope to God that they've learned from this season. They're going to start doing more stuff locally in the local markets to try and start drumming up attention. But this is where it's going to require our part also. Not all of us are fortunate enough to have the fan group, if you will, that St. Louis has, that's going to show up just to spite the NFL and everybody else, as long as they're relevant. We have to do things our own way. We're going to have to go out there and we're going to have to make our own noise. We're going to have to drum up attention, right? Maybe go to the SAFC games and bring your Horns Forward podcast flag with you, or your Brahmas flag with you, right? Show up to a missions game, have your colors. Go to the UTSA games or Trinity or UIW, right? Make your own noise. There's got to be. I know. Well, I don't think St. Louis. They have the Cardinals. I don't know that people are going to necessarily pay attention.
Well, they've done collaborations.
And they've like you said, Jorge, they've done collaborations with a lot of the local teams. And I think that's something that's needed kind of across the board, not just in St. Louis. San Antonio should do it. All, Houston, Arlington, everyone needs to find that local team just to kind of, do something with. I mean, hell, I was just looking at, y'all saw like a couple weeks ago, if freaking Banana Ball can get 74,000 people in a North Carolina stadium, we can have better attendance across the board.
That's not a fair comparison, though, because you're talking about a gimmick versus
it's the Globetrotters of baseball, but
you don't see Kellen Mond out there on like 10-foot stilts trying to throw a pass, although it might actually help.
Might help,
But the point is, like, we're playing a sport,
right? But my point is, they didn't get popular just being a gimmick.
Yeah, they did.
They've had fantastic marketing showing their gimmick. So that's true. You got to look at it from a marketing perspective and stuff. So
but the gimmick sells itself. Brian, how many commercials have you seen for the Harlem Globetrotters? Yet you still know who they are.
Recently, I haven't seen a commercial for them in probably 10 years.
I only see them when they're in town.
Yeah,
right. But you still know who they are, and you would still show up. Like if they're $10 tickets or something. I'm not talking like $200 tickets or whatever. But if they're $10 tickets, you're going to go.
I went one time they were here, but they were at Freeman. So
right.
But again,
gimmick
you're
sells it.
Marketing of that gimmick. There's plenty of gimmicks around that nobody gives a damn about. You got to be able to market the gimmick. So UFL is more than a gimmick. It's a legitimate league. They just got to be able to capitalize on it and market it.
Yes.
IFA gimmick.
Tell me about it. Make sure you tune in tomorrow to Texans Talking Football, because we've got some stuff to talk about the IFA, but we're not going to waste time here because we talk about real football here. But yes, marketing is going to be huge, right? KJ, we have done things like that, and it does sound like we are going to be doing a collaboration with the San Antonio Missions baseball team. I believe they're what? AA?
They're AA. AA for the Padres, if I'm not mistaken.
So there are some collabs with some of the local sports teams. The university stuff probably is not necessarily on their radar, although I think that's a really great idea.
I would imagine at least with us, I mean, we know our front office, we know they're smart. I would imagine they're trying to go in. It's got to work both ways. The university has to be like, okay, what's in this for us, not just give you, kind of free advertisement or whatever. We got to get something too. So I obviously we don't know, but I know our front office, our team is smart enough that they're probably looking into stuff like that.
Right. Well, and I would think it would make sense if we're the ones that are doing it at one of their games. Obviously, we had to pay to get to their game. So that's kind of the trade-off, that we're willing to spend money to support their program. We're just asking for a little bit of recognition. Hey, look, there's those Brahmas fans. Maybe you guys should check that out in March when they start up again. Something like that. Right. But it all starts with trying something. Sitting around waiting for things to happen never amounts to anything. So,
and again, you can't. I think you said it earlier. You can't just expect the league to do everything. We've got to be grassroots about this. We got to get out there, and drum up our own. And it is what it is. I mean, it's kind of that's what it is for a startup league, which is what the UFL is. So it's a two-front effort. You got to get grassroots coming in, trying to drum up fan base support, and you got to get league buy-in, city buy-in, for marketing and stuff. So,
yeah, maybe we can send Jorge over to DC for one of the games, and he can go streak the field with the Brahmas flag, get some notoriety for us.
There you go.
I mean, something, right?
The World Cup games, you mean?
Yes, yes.
Anything for the team, bro. Come on. No? Okay.
Just get a big old Brahmas tattoo on your back, on your chest, and just streak the field.
We'll put a pin in that one for later. We'll revisit that. Anyways, so overall, not the game that we thought. Started out that way. Certainly looked like, DC was not going to be able to come back from the clobbering that they started getting. And then poor Michigan, man. I don't know what second quarter adjustment was made, but they were not ready for it. And they just, I will say that fourth quarter, I don't know how you guys feel about it. I was very surprised by that.
It was intense. It was
4th and 12, baby.
Kind of fun to watch, and it's a whole different vibe to the game. And Michigan scored, and then 4th and 12, and then they scored, and then it was like, oh crap, they may actually come back. And by that time, that DC defense was tired.
Yeah.
So luckily, are they kind of we were talking in our chat, me and DJ. Like they gotta DC's got to kind of suck it up for one play and make that stop, and they did finally. So.
Yep. But unfortunately, it was not to be. They were not able to bounce back from that. So congrats. I'm sorry, talking about Michigan. But so congrats to our 2025 UFL champion DC Defenders. Excalibur, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you tomorrow. You can come try and bash some Texans talking football. But yeah, overall, was a little bit surprised. I want to ask you guys this because there was mention about just some of the discontent with the halftime show. What did you guys think of the halftime show?
I mean, I'm a rock fan, so I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I mean, I thought they were decent. I'm not a rap fan, so I didn't like Marquette King last year. It's just not my style. So I enjoyed it more than last year. I didn't love it, but I was like, hey, these guys aren't bad. So
I'm not a fan of halftime shows, period. Like I don't even watch Super Bowl halftime show. So I take it or leave it. That's just me though.
I will say I wasn't completely upset by it because I mean you got to keep in mind it's the UFL, right? They're not going to have $10 million to be able to afford, the weekend or something like that. I
I saw it in the background. I didn't even pay attention to the national anthem, unfortunately. I thought overall I was surprised. It was a musical group actually playing their own instruments versus what we get for a halftime show, which is 99% lip synced and choreographed. Marquette King, I was kind of surprised by the fact that it was just him, right? That could not have possibly cost them that much money for him to come out there and sing. So why didn't we do something else? Maybe have some backup dancers or some fireworks or I don't know, a riot or something, anything.
Yeah,
right?
Vestos would have caught fire.
All that dust, man. Boof. Anyways, so from a production value, I'm just surprised I'm not seeing more being put into it. But then again, you got to keep it in perspective, right? It is the UFL. You know, it's not like they've got, you know, $100,000 laying around.
Yeah,
right?
and I mean, it was. I think they're fairly local-ish. They're kind of in that area, and
They're a
you know,
Midwest band. Yeah.
They're not like a slouch of a band. Like they've had, you know, top 40, you know, albums and songs and stuff. So maybe not down here, but they're, you know, they're fairly decently known. So obviously, yeah, it's not, you know, freaking Kendrick Lamar or, you know, The Weeknd or, you know, I don't know, who was the last rock band that actually performed in the Super Bowl, but
I don't even know.
Chili Peppers, maybe.
U2.
I was thinking, was it like Gin Blossoms a couple of years ago?
They didn't perform the Super Bowl.
What?
I'm pretty sure they did.
1995 Super Bowl, maybe.
Maybe. Well, I mean, that's when the Cowboys were still relevant, so I figured BD would know.
No.
Anyways, again, just the production value, you know, it just felt kind of weird. Like 3 dudes out there with instruments kind of by themselves. It was like they snuck onto the field. I think that's a stretch. Can we get a Temu Snoop, right? maybe Diddy will do it for, you know, like $10K in a case of baby oil or something, you know. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. We're just going to leave that one alone, okay? But the point is, there's got to be. Well, why not Nelly? It was in St. Louis. It's not like he's doing anything. Why didn't they get Nelly?
They didn't have enough baby oil.
Yeah, he might have been, you know, a little tied up. And I'm not going to go any further with that comment there. Anyways,
all right. So being, just because I was looking at the last rock band to perform the halftime show was 2016 with Coldplay. So
wait, you said rock band, right?
I know that. Well, that's why I air quoted it. So,
anyways, okay. So that kind of pretty much sums up. Yeah. Wraps up, sums up. That's the end of the UFL 2025 season. At this point now, it's going to be start gearing up for college and for NFL, keeping an eye on the players that are going to be getting called up for tryouts and things like that.
Yep.
Which we talked about it last week on TTF. I still support the idea of doing the league earlier because now these poor guys who just competed in a championship game, several of them probably got a little bit busted up, and now they're going to have to go try and make a squad. That's going to be tough on their bodies, man.
Yeah.
So
you're almost putting them at a disadvantage at that point. So,
yeah. So we'll have to keep our eyes on, you know, the UFL tickers and headlines and stuff, and just track the players. I do hope for the best for all of our San Antonio Brahmas that are going to get a shot in the NFL. Kind of selfish. I kind of also hope they don't make it so they come back, right? But either way, we wish nothing but the best.
Yeah, absolutely. We love watching them, but we wish the best for them. So,
yeah. So,
but with that said, that wraps up the 2025 UFL Season 2. I think we'll be sporadically on as we are able to secure guests.
Yeah, we're gonna. I don't know. We may be on next week. We may not. If we don't have a guest, we won't be on. If we do, we will.
We'll be taking breaks probably. I mean that part of the course for the summertime.
Yeah,
and Yeah, I mean, lots of changes happening to the team itself, like our team, our podcast team. So, with that said, we will see y'all when we see y'all, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Well, you'll definitely see us tomorrow at
Yep.
9, 8 Central.
Yeah.
For
8
Texas
Central.
Talking Football.
Normal time. I don't care about the other. Normal time. 8 o'clock. 8
Well-
o'clock Central, normal time.
There are like 3 other time zones. Maybe
Nobody
4.
cares about those time zones. All right.
People that live in them do.
Nobody cares about those time zones. Nobody cares about the people in those time zones. All right.
That's so messed up. I guess if you're outside of Texas borders, you just don't matter anymore. And
Yeah.
that's fine. But yeah, so what Tutem Bramasita said, right? She's working on scheduling some players, some coaches, I'm sure some super fans. And Rick, just keep your eye out for updates, man. We'll let you guys know whenever we're going to be going live with Horns Forward. We'll let you know. I mean, you pretty much count on Texans Talking Football because thank God we live in a time where we have football year round and we have something to talk about all the time. So yeah, we'll be live tomorrow. This will give our staff here a little bit of a chance to kind of unwind and decompress, focus a little bit more on the content of the show, bring in some special guests, have some fun with that, and just get us prepared for the 2026 UFL season.
Yeah.
So
Season
that being
3.
the case,
Season 3, season 4 of the Brahmas. So let's go.
Hopefully we'll get another season of Vamos Brahmas.
Possibly.
I'm sorry. Well, I mean, you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Hey, by then I'll be on year 2.5 of my Duolingo lesson.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
Yo soy. I don't even know.
All right. Let's cut it. That's enough.
All right.
Let's go, Jay.
Points
Let's
forward,
go.
everyone.
We'll see you guys.
Bye, guys.
Sign us out.